Hey everybody, Kyle Goth here from GoatFilmReviews.com and the Goat Film Reviews YouTube channel, and I've got my first reaction to the new Pixar film, Elemental. Now, this is one that's it started getting some mixed reception from critics, and then it started to go up a little bit over time, where it started, I think, in the rotten territory and now sits somewhere in the 70s or maybe 80s. So I was really excited from the trailer because it seemed like a visually stunning world, and the trailer sold us on the idea that this would be a Pixar rom-com, as it would stand. And I didn't realize the film would also be an immigrant tale, a tale of clashing cultures and that kind of thing. And I was actually really excited to see it, because the idea that Pixar would be using this stunning animation style and like this really gripping visual aesthetic to tell a rom-com sounded really fun to me. I was disappointed in the movie, and I'll tell you why. I don't think I really fell for the romantic angle, and I would assume it's got to be very hard to do good chemistry for two animated characters. So I get that. It's a tough call. But they tried to do it, and so I have to critique them on what they tried, and it didn't work for me. I was not into the chemistry between the two leads. I didn't buy that they had a romantic angle, because they did the classic montage through the opening of the relationship. Like, they started out kind of butting heads, and then they montaged into them getting along, and I was like, that's what we're supposed to see. You know, we're supposed to see the character development. So that part didn't work for me. And then the immigrant stuff, like, the idea of it made sense, but it was just so pedestrian. And so in that way, that disappointed me. I guess I wouldn't say that the immigration stuff was bad, but it was very pedestrian, you know. And I think a lot of other reviewers have talked about this as well, but like, the whole idea is like, one family is fire and one is water and they don't mix. And it's like, yeah, okay. Like, it's a little too on the nose, a little too obvious. And that was frustrating for me, because Pixar is usually a lot better about this kind of stuff. And this was just a very pedestrian, unengaging plot. I was not tired walking into this movie. I became tired watching this movie. I was exhausted by the lack of excitement I felt watching this narrative play out. And even the film itself recognizes, or seems to recognize, that it's not a full realized world. There's a scene, and this was in the trailer too, but there's a scene where the characters are going through a fenced-in area, and the water guy can ripple right through the fence, and the firewoman just burns a hole in the fence, which I guess you have to be pretty hot to burn, like, fencing, metal fencing, but that's what she does in the film. And he says, why do we even have these here? And it's true. Like, that's the kind of, that's my least favorite kind of Pixar world building, is when they're in on the joke with you. And the same thing kind of happens with the Cars franchise, which is like all these weird things that Cars wouldn't need, that were in the Cars franchise. And you know that, like, that's where that joke came from, that like the Cars franchise is set in the post-apocalypse, because obviously someone built all these different things for their own use, and the cars just became sentient and took them over. But like, that's kind of the inside joke about that. And it's one of the things I'm most dissatisfied with any of the Cars films for, is the world is not fully realized to what it would be. It's realized to a human perspective, which is not interesting. I don't care about the human perspective. And so that's what this film does too, to a lesser extent than Cars, but still it's there. And that was really frustrating for me, because I do think the film looks great for what they decided to put on screen. I think there's some nice musical choices. I think there's some, I think like the animation, the Fire Girl, like the way she's animated is so interesting and unique, where it reminded me a bit of Spider-Verse, and how the flames licked in the right way, where they seem tangible, like you could go and touch them. And the water guy was like, okay, I see what you're doing there. The other thing too is, like, this is a city with 4 different elements, it seems like: earth, air, fire, and water. And we don't really get much of air or earth. Like, we don't necessarily need it, I guess, but I'd like to have some explanation for how this world is put together. You know, there's a couple of great moments, like, as people are arriving, so the film opens with this interesting kind of, like I said, immigration story of a couple arriving on a boat. And I gotta wonder to myself, the fire couple is arriving on a boat. They're traveling over water, which maybe that's the only way they can do it, perhaps. But then they cut to the air people arriving, and they're arriving by blimp. And the blimp arrives, and it parks in its little like landing zone, and all the air people get out, and as they do, the blimp deflates. And then it sinks down a level to the people who are departing, who all the air people get on and basically refill the blimp, and then it takes off again. What a clever visual image to put in for the air people. But when it's the fire people, they just arrive on a boat. And it's like, maybe there's a more clever way to do this. It's just like lack of enthusiasm on the creator's part that just made me kind of underwhelmed with the whole film in general. So, you know what? This is a movie that I think will work for some people. I've spoken to a number of people that really like the movie, and that's great. Maybe those things worked for you. I get what Pixar is trying to do here, but most of it didn't work to the extent of which I think it should have, to the extent of which I think Pixar is capable of, we've come to expect from them, and to the extent of which that I think this movie needed to accomplish in order to capture my excitement, capture my interest. And it didn't, which is too bad because I was really, really rooting for this movie, and it just didn't really work for me all that much. I kind of found it a little boring. Yeah. So let me know your thoughts on Elemental down below in the comment section. While you're down there, please like and subscribe. There's 2 free things you can do that help to support the channel immensely, and you never miss new episodes of the show as they drop. While you're down there, check out the links for goatfilmreviews.com for my many written reviews. You can check out Goat Film Reviews on Facebook. You can find me at Almighty Goatman on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and you can also check out my other show, Kyle and Nick on Film. I co-host with Nick Plotachuk in the St. Paul Filmcast. We have new episodes every single week. Those links are all down in the description as well. Check them out. We'll see you next time.